Hi everybody, welcome to this evening's Wine Talk Ladies Edition. Tonight we will be covering being a black woman in society. Stories we might have, experiences, good, bad, up, down. Today with me I have
Jennifer,
Tiny's Jet,
and of course I'm Autumn. Alright ladies, let's get right into it. So me personally, I struggled when I was younger. Not saying that I'm that old now, but it was hard for me, like especially with me always having like a little bit of curves and not being able to wear certain things and me having to present myself a certain way. It just kind of, I don't know, it took me a while to actually learn how to love the skin that I was in, quote, and learn how to not just over-sexualize myself for one and make it so other people learn to respect me and choices that I made and the clothes that I decided to wear, and it was just a lot. Like, I remember in high school, me and this other non-curvy girl had the same outfit on, and I got sent home because mine was doing too much, I guess, and she didn't, and that was like a really big problem for me. And later on, my mom had to explain to me, like, yeah, we're going to come across those issues. And, like, when she always used to refer to things as, like, us and we, I've never understood, like, what is us? Like, me and you? Like, what are you talking about? But then after, like, I got older, I'm like, okay, like, I understand it's us, as in, like, black women, curvy women, just us in general. Like, we have to go through, I feel like, bunch of unnecessary just extras that other people don't have to go through. So...
and fighting with chickens.
Yeah, and fighting with chickens.
You gotta see the
I definitely got
episode.
bit, right? Check out the previous episode. I got bit by a chicken. That's
I'm
not.
kidding.
No, like really.
She grew up on a farm, so that's yeah, it was interesting stories. Yeah, but I'm interesting that this is where I mean, and my sister, we will definitely can share, because I just think those are some of the same messages that I got as well. Growing up, it was almost, I was taught to be ashamed of my body.
Yes.
Like, not to appreciate my body when, just be spiritual for a moment here. The Bible says you're fearfully and wonderfully made. You know what I mean? God took the time to design you. Even though I might have added on a few extra things, with some of my cookies and cakes and pies. But to know that He took the time to uniquely to design me and my features and everything. And then you have this whole... just double standard, you know what I mean, when it comes to our bodies. We are told cover up, you know what I mean, yes. Everything, but then somebody else could take our bodies and try to recreate them, and they're celebrating, you know what I mean, from whether it's a hairstyle, whether it's baby edges or curvy back,
sticky back.
And it's like, it's frustrating because you have to always keep sorting through these messages, and then the objectivity, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's like you gotta cover up, because if you go out looking like that, somebody gonna, think you a prostitute, or somebody gonna think you a hoe, or this, that, and that. And it's like you always gotta have all of this double consciousness going on about who you are. Just let my body be. Quit trying to tell me about my body. Get out of my body.
Yeah, you think that's something that is unique to just us as black women, like in terms of those messages, in terms of like black women having to cover their bodies or feel a certain way about their bodies because they're more curvaceous than maybe some of the other cultures?
Yes, I do. I think that just the whole stigma, if you make it let's just say make a broader landscape, it's just the whole ideology about who we are as black people is always trying to put us in some type of box, right? Mm-hmm. And then when you dial it down, then just taking it to where you're asking, it's like we don't fit those boxes. So when we don't fit those boxes, then people then try to, weaponize us. They try to, if we go in the office, we can go in this office with pretty much the same exact suit on as somebody from another culture, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe because that, and let's just say lengthwise, maybe ours is hit at the knees, they're hit at the knees, right? Mm-hmm. You got the one button, right? You know what I mean? You have it buttoned down just a little bit. But because maybe something pops out a little bit more on us, or it fits us a little bit more shapelier, then it's like, well, who she thinks she is, or management is like, well, that's too seductive for the office. Mm-hmm. But yet it's still, this person gets to prance with the exact same thing on.
Yeah.
You know, so that's just one aspect or one example of it. You know, and then even within our own culture, you know, church culture has also taught us mixed messages about that as well. And I definitely do believe that their modesty does play a part.
Sure.
You know what I mean? But it's almost like you don't teach a person, you know, the right way. You just automatically assume that they're trying to be something and they're not. They're just literally dressing based on whatever environment that they may have grew up in.
Yeah.
And it's unfair to not, and not to say you have time to necessarily dissect every situation when somebody comes in, but at least be kind in your approach, you know, to these things. And we weren't kind.
Yeah.
We weren't kind.
Yeah. I think that we definitely have been over-sexualized to your point earlier. And ironically, that's where I experienced it the most. Like, it was in church. It was not in, you know, and I work for a church now, but like early on, you know, my first few jobs were like, I was at a bank and I worked at a hotel, you know, and I worked in like a nursing facility, a nursing home facility, and, you know, in the bank and hotel specifically, you know, it was professional dress, and I am curvier, you know, but I never ever received any of those kinds of messages in those environments. However, you know, in church environments, you know, they were the I guess the philosophy or the teaching, and again, I understand where it comes from. I do think that there is something to be said for modesty. There is something to be said for, you know, keeping something to the imagination, all those things. But I think the approach was more, you should not dress this way or that way so that you don't cause a man to lust. Yes. You know, and that's the part that was most problematic for me, because I'm like, okay, if he has a lust issue, that's his issue.
Right.
It is not
you thing.
Yeah, that's not my issue. You know what I mean? Like, lust is a heart issue. Like, it's like, that has nothing to do with, you know, and noticing, observing, that's not lusting. Lusting is when you go further than just noticing someone's beauty or something like that. And so that was the part. And for years, like, it made me very, very self-conscious, because as a godly woman, you know, I did want to make sure that I was being appropriate and that I was, you know, not causing anybody to sin or anything like that. But it made me so self-conscious about myself that I began to feel ashamed of the way that I looked. And I did not know, okay, you know, every time, you know, I would look in the mirror before I like, is this going to cause a man to lust? Is this going to cause me to lust? Is this too tight? Is this too short? Is this, you know? And so it was like, does this show my, you know, my waist, you know, and is that going to cause somebody else? You know what I mean? So it was just, that was the part for me that was really, really difficult. And it took years. I mean, years. Like, I still sometimes, you know, have, you know, I have issues, like, you know, and those thoughts still come up, you know, and it could be me and my husband, like, going out somewhere, and I'm like, okay, is this okay? Am I okay?
And to your point even about that, when I was married, I remember, like, being so embarrassed to take my clothes off in front of my husband because all of the messages that I had received about my body. And then I remember going to, like, a event with, you know, women, and, you know, different women that had, you know, at this time I was divorced, but I remember women, you know, speaking about some of the same issues. And it was other women, you know, that were saying, you know, they were freer, if you will. And they were like, girl, you know what I'm saying, you better, you know, wear this and wear that and be confident and things like that. And I'm like, what in the world? It was like, like, it's okay, because now I was told to pretty much be ashamed of my body, but then when you get married, you're supposed to be free with, you know what I'm saying?
And you can't just switch the mindset like that.
No.
Like, all of that teaching, all that internalization of those messages, you don't just get rid of those the moment that you get married. So they do still play a part, you know, in how you relate to your husband and the way that how comfortable you feel, you know, being sexual, you know, in a relationship where it is supposed to be, you know, completely, you know, okay. Like, there is nothing undefiled, you know, in the bedroom, as the Bible says. So, yeah, That part is tough. That part is tough. I am starting to see a little bit more, like, especially I think in this moment where women are kind of, being more vocal, and we are also, even some men, being advocates for women in that regard. Yes. And pushing back against some of these more toxic messages that didn't necessarily come from the Bible, but more patriarchy and patriarchal philosophies about women and things like that. So it's like I think it's definitely gotten better. But I do also think that we still, have a long way to go, and I think it's up to us, to have conversations, and share and really be outspoken, because that's the other thing. Like, because it was considered wrong, or is considered wrong, and still in some contexts, it's like you don't speak up about it, because it's like, you know what I mean? Like, you don't want to, you don't want to go against the grain or experience the consequences of speaking out against, of things that for the most part in these particular cultural contexts, is accepted, and not just accepted, but that is the rule, you know what I mean?
And I'm not saying like, that I want to just go out, because I think there's times for things, you know what I mean? Absolutely. What I would, when I'm married, what I would wear for my husband, that's not what I'm trying to wear to the grocery store, you know what I mean? Like, something more intimate apparel or something like that. So I get it, you know what I mean? But, and I think that you can teach women, or you can teach young women, or, in general, to be appreciative of their body, to tap into their feminism and their sexuality, you know what I'm saying, and be confident, and not, and appreciate it without having to associate it with, oh, well, you wore this, so you trying to be, this, that, or whatever, And so that, for me, just wanted to be more responsible, and even my own judgmental ways, because I grew up with that. The other part of it is detoxing, because I'll see somebody wearing something, and because of the messages that I've received, now I'm like, well, why do you think she's wearing that?
Oh, but think about this, and not to cut you off, but like, that just reminded me, though, when we're younger, like when we're little girls, think about the times that you've heard, oh, she being fast.
She being fast. About to say that.
Think about that.
Especially with like me and my daughter, I try not to draw attention to those things with her. Like, she's a curvier little girl, and she'll be 11 this year, so everything's starting to pop out and stuff is just stuffing, and I'm like, whoo. Like, when she puts on, like, say like the leggings and the t-shirt, I try not to, like, my mom used to have this bad habit of being like, ooh girl, like your booty poking out, or like do it. I try not to do that to her, and be like, no. Like, okay, like, I'll ask her, like, are you comfortable? Like, is something too tight or whatever? And, like, she'll usually tell me, but if not, I'll just be like, okay, you're a child, and people shouldn't be looking at you like that anyway. But in my mind, I'm like, they're going to. So it's like, I try to do everything that I can to make sure as her mom that I'm, like, covering all bases. But if that's what you want to wear, then okay, as long as it's not, for me, too far outside of, like, okay, like, you pushing it, you're a child still, but you comfortable, I'm with it, like, it's okay. So I have to be programmed too.
Yeah, we have to teach our daughters, because the reality is, when they go out into the world, they are going to be subjected to scrutiny and stares, especially if they, if they tend to be a little bit more developed and things like that. And so it is important, to make your daughters especially aware of that. It's just, that the challenge comes in with, like, well, how much, do we talk about this? You know what I mean? Because you don't want to make them self-conscious, or like make them feel like there is something wrong with the fact that they are leggier, or
control over it.
They have no control over it. You know what I mean? So it's like, I just think that there's definitely a fine line there, and it is something that you have to be careful, because you can really screw somebody up. Like when it comes to that. So
and I just want to be like as helpful as I can be. You know what I mean? Because again, I think it's also subjective, because some women are definitely way more confident than me. I'm like, okay.
right.
I'm like, all right. So you're just going to let her order that. Okay. And they just be walking and sashaying, and I'll be like, all right. So I'm just like, okay.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. Like, again, like detoxifying from those messages and coming into a healthier mindset about that. And also, even teaching men, you know what I mean? I was just at something a little while ago, And in this environment, you know what I mean, it's custom that you wear this type of outfit, you know, because it's a part of the atmosphere. And then, but I'm just like looking at, you know, the bros, you know, they like, you know, that's and you know, we understand that men are definitely turned on one side, you know what I mean? You know,
women are too.
Well, that's right, because I be like, hey.
That's another one of those messages. Like it's often said that only men are women are turned on by sight too. No, you know that goes to that thing. What?
No, go ahead.
What? No, but I'm saying like that goes to that whole thing about like, okay, the difference between just lusting and noticing, right? Or observing or just appreciating, right? You know what I mean? Like I think that's also like just a message, you know, that a stereotype, if you will, like that's been pushed, like that only men are turned on by sight, and that they're wired differently when it comes to that. Well, you know, like we like what we like too. You know what I mean? So, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, no, I was just saying. I was like, and even you know, even like with that again, just you know, if a guy approaches you, you know, the wrong way, you know what I'm saying, or if he says something, you know, to you in a manner. Not to so much always be able to be ready. Of course, if he's disrespectful, then you know. We don't want to get no hands. we don't know that. We don't play all right. Well, of course, but if you got to protect yourself. But if he said, I'm like, no, I said thank you for your compliment, but this is how it was a better approach to me. A woman like me approach me like this. If you ever see me, you know what I'm saying. This is how you compliment me. You know what I'm saying. Instead of like, hey, bet, you know what I'm saying. You know, like something like that. You know, like you know.
Does that work? That's a good idea.
It does to the, you know, again, you have some men that are just jerks, but a lot of times when you just aren't being just nasty back or something, you know, you just say, hey, you know, sometimes they just, okay, I got you, I feel you, you know what I'm saying? Because a lot of times they got a mother, they got a sister, you know what I mean? They just may be in an environment that they think this is conducive to.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
That's true.
You know, so if you're not trying to emasculate them in the moment, because they got egos, but if you at least go over and gently say, hey, you know, I appreciate you complimenting me, but do it this way.
Yeah.
You know?
When did you start to learn, like, to appreciate? You were talking about how you didn't feel comfortable in the skin that you're in, and you know, younger. Like, when did you start to learn, and what was it that helped you to embrace who you were and what you know?
Funny. Actually, when I went to college. And I found one of my, well, she's still like my best friend, but she moved to Georgia on me and I'm hurt. But, she really, like, it was, I used to struggle with, like, when we used to get ready to go out. I used to, like, struggle, like, I'll have on one outfit and she'd be like, oh, girl, you look cute, get ready to go. Next 5 minutes, I done changed, and she like, you know, what happened? And I had to sit down and tell her, like, I don't know what's okay and what's not okay, because just sharing a little bit of my past is maybe personal, but I was sexually assaulted when I was younger. So, like, that has a lot to do with, that has a lot to do with it for me. So, like, sometimes I'm kind of up in the, sometimes I'm kind of up in the air about, you know, what's okay, what's not okay. And then she kind of just sat me down and was like, girl, you can't control this. You can't control this. Like, you can control how other people view it, but you also have to be comfortable with what you choose to wear and how you choose to see yourself. And I'm like, okay. So if I want to wear, you know, my little black dress, as they call it, and I want to have the thighs out with the leg, I have to learn how to be okay with that. Like, for myself, not for anybody else but myself. And I feel like that's another issue that I used to have, is I was kind of programmed to think that when you dress for men instead of yourself. Like, I used to always think, how would a man see me, or would a man talk to me in this, or would a guy talk to me in that? It's like, no, I have to be comfortable with myself. If I want to go out the house in jogger pants one day, leggings another day, jeans the next day, a whole get down outfit, and I'm going to the grocery store, I can do that. Like, I have to be comfortable with myself. That's what started.
And that was a whole contribution of rape culture too. That was another thing, and that's a whole nother topic. But again, it was almost like, you know what I'm saying, because you dress like that, then you deserve that. You know, this happens to you because you were dressed like that. So that, you know, we have to, again, it's so much to detoxify from, but, you know, but as long as we are now in this awareness and we can help, you know, kind of, again, I always say, put the pebble in the pond and let the ripple effect take place.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Okay, now to that, and I agree with you 100%. Like, yes, there was, you know, this whole idea of women inviting certain things to happen to them because, you know, they are dressed a certain way, and that's bullcrap. That's not at all. You are responsible for your choices as an individual if you choose to harm someone else. That has nothing to do with the individual, you know, who is the subject or the recipient of whatever you choose to do. But I do want to say, because this is interesting. Now, I'm married now, so this is not anything. But I did used to feel like if I was going into certain spaces and I knew that there were going to be single men there, I am going to dress a certain kind of way. I'm like, I want to get over there. Over there. Oh, okay. You know, I'm putting this on then because, you know, I want to look as appealing and as attractive. Now, I don't know. That probably was not the right thing to do or the right way to go about it. And I'm not saying like I was being like extremely provocative.
Right.
But I definitely looked in the mirror and said, am I cute? Like, let me see. Like, you know what I mean? So what do you think though? Should we? Is it okay?
Like, I think putting on your best, like, you know, because guys do the same thing.
I feel like we've all done it. It's no shame in it.
Yeah, I think we do that. We just want to dress and impress.
Yes.
You know, and we probably, that's something we probably say internally amongst ourselves or whatever too, as well as we're like, we know such and such gonna be that. Oh, he cute. Let me make sure I just put on this outfit versus, you know, or whatever. So I think it's, and I think I've heard guys, some of my male friends have done the same thing. Like if I know we going to a set or something like that, and they'll be like, oh, she gonna be there. Oh, let me change my shoes. You know, because guys are serious about their belt and their shoes. You know, you know. So yeah, I definitely think. You know, but again, if it's just more of a, and you like you said, you'll know where that was coming from. You know what I'm saying? And if you are actually going there to be more provocative or, you know, if that was more of the messages you want to give, like I'm easy, you know what I'm saying? That's different. So then you have to obviously assess that for yourself. Like, no, because you don't ever want to, you know, you don't want that to be the message. You know what I mean? But if you do want to say, I'm going to this event or I'm going to this function or, you know, or whatever the case may be, of course, I always say first, for you. You know, for you. You know, just for you. You know what I'm saying? And whatever you put on, confidence is what's going to be most attractive in anything. You know, put that on first. You know what I'm saying? You know, because when you put that on, your clothes don't.
People like what they like. Like I used to, when I did have friends and we used to go out like in college settings and stuff, I used to like kind of make it a point to be the most dressed down in the group just to kind of weigh out the theory, and it worked out in my favor in most cases. But it's just like, I feel like it's more than, okay, I got on all these tight clothes, you know, like come holler at me or like something like, I don't know, like to me it was just like, okay, if they got on this, I'm gonna wear these sweatpants and this shirt with these and I'm gonna see if I could, I mean, it worked, but I just like to like play with theories and stuff like that, like in my mind, like.
That has happened to me too, a lot of times too, because I've always been kind of like more of the, you know, I'm give me a fresh pair of kicks, nice pair of jeans. You know? I'm not always the prissy one. Now listen, I'll stand on you. Now I'll pull something out the back of the closet if I got to. But my normal is, you know, and my sister know back in the day, because I would, when cross colors was all out, FUBU, all that.
Yes. Now you're dating yourself.
Carl Canine. So the biggest fashion designers of the 90s. You gotta go back and, you know. And so those that's what I gravitated to. And sometimes the people or the lady or the group that I would necessarily be with, they would put on like the cute little halter top and you know, and when we would go, and it would be unfortunate sometimes, they would get the attention. I wouldn't get the attention. I'd be like, you know what I'm saying? But then I would get a different type of attention. You know what I'm saying? And it would be like, you know, the guy, like, I could talk, you know, because I like sports, I like cars, you know what I'm saying, and things like that. And then I like cooking and, you know, different things like that. But I can have conversations, whereas they were being more, unfortunately, looked at like, oh, I want to sleep with her, you know what I'm saying. I was getting a different conversation, you know what I mean. And so it just depends, I guess, you know. You know, I might have always walked away with Bae. But you know, I ain't want all them bays. Because those are bays that didn't stay. That bay didn't stay.
Now, let me ask another question. When it comes to, because we're talking about Black women and in our experiences as Black women, how do you feel? Do you feel like you still have a certain kind of double consciousness when you go into spaces that are predominantly white?
Ooh.
Or do you feel like, you know, like you're just so comfortable or confident in being a Black woman that you no longer, you know, carry that double consciousness?
I definitely still, I feel like, I'm not going to speak for everybody, but I feel like just being Black in general, that's a thing that we have. Like me, I feel like anywhere that you can be, I can be too. But in the back of my mind, it's hard to think that people don't judge you, or like someone's not thinking this about you, or oh, I wonder if, you know, this person is doing this, or like just the looks that you get. It's like no matter how confident I am in the space, because I could be the only Black woman in a crowd of 99 white women, and I'll still just be like, okay, I'm here, what's up? But in the back of my mind, it's just like you kind of on edge. So like it's kind of both for me. Like I said, I'm confident because I feel like I'm not less than anybody, and I can be anywhere that you can be. But I don't like the stigma and everything else that comes with it, with us being Black women, how we have attitudes, or she might pop off, or you know, we're perceived as ratchet and ghetto, and we don't know what's gonna come out of her mouth, or she might assault me, like that type of stuff. It's just like I have mannerisms just like you. I was brought up in a household with, you know, elders and people who I need to respect just like you did. It's like, so there's really no big difference, but it's like the cultural gap is there too. Like, for example, lady at my job earlier. Oh, okay. So I'm trying to start a special lock in the back of my head, and it's like right here or whatever. And she was like, oh, how did you get it that small? Like, how did you braid it? And she was just asking questions, and I was trying to explain to her, like, it's literally just a coil. Like, I took my hair, wrapped it around my finger, and I coiled it. And she was like, well, mine doesn't do that. She's like, you mind if I touch it? Please don't touch me. In my brain, I'm like, if she touches me, I'm gonna have to go off. But I'm like, I have to find a way to calmly tell her, please keep your hands to yourself. I can show you, I can demonstrate, but that's as far as it's gonna go. Like, I can't. So like those types of things, like they're comfortable with just kind of overstepping, and I feel like they do it in a way where it's like, let me see how far I can push you type thing. And in our mind, we're like, okay, I know you can take me there, but I'm not gonna let you. Like, so that's where I am with that. It's,
I'm working through this because it's tough for me. Because of so much that has been happening in our culture. For one, I feel, and I heard D.O. Hughley, I was watching one of my friends posted something. D.O. was speaking of the recent controversy that's going on, and he said something about, I'm sorry that I wasn't sorrier sooner. Speaking to the dynamic, and it resonated with me because I feel like just taking that statement and equated it to what you're asking about how I feel in this space. I feel like I wish I would have known or been more conscious or more aware of what was happening to me sooner when I'm in spaces with other cultures. And when they were like literally in your face playing you and you didn't even know, and you acquiesced to it because, you know, I felt like I needed to completely abandon who I was so that I can fit this environment, you know, or whatever the case may be, or so that I could teach them, you know what I'm saying? Like you say, they want to know, you know, and if somebody genuinely from another culture genuinely want, and you can kind of discern the genuineness of or the sincerity of their heart, and they really want to know something because they don't know, I don't mind giving you a little bit, but then you need to go you need to go figure this out. You need to go learn. I'm not going to teach you. You know what I'm saying? Because the information is out there now. But if you are, you know, when I'm coming into these spaces now, it's almost like I'm frustrated that I even got to think about who I need to be in this space. You know what I mean? So it's almost like when I come into the space, I'm already mad before I get there. Because I'm like, I got to go in here to this boardroom, everybody in here, I'm the only Black person that's going to be in here. And I got to go in here like I got to prove something. Hell to no. No, I'm going in there with who I am. You know what I'm saying? If you anything, you're going to prove something to me. And I don't want to be that because I know the tropes, I know the stereotypes. But that's what I almost feel like now. It's like this has been something we've been carrying on our backs, and I didn't know that we were carrying it because I just didn't know. You know, so it's, I don't say so much that I have a double consciousness. I think my consciousness needs to be calmed down.
Hilarious. Yeah, like that's interesting because I don't think you know, when I was younger, I definitely do not think that I was aware. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that I mean, obviously, I knew I was black. I knew I was different. But I did not perceive that I was being looked at differently because I was black. But I almost count that as a blessing because I don't feel like I changed necessarily. I mean, you do your code switching, right? You go to certain rooms. You know what I mean? But I do that. You know, I do that in our culture too, depending on, you know what I mean, depending on the crowd, because there are just different environments that you go in, right? Like, so if I'm in a very professional environment, which with, you know, and we're discussing business, obviously, you know, I'm not going to act the same way, yes, that I would if I was at home just chilling with my girlfriends. You know, it's different. But I think that if I had known that, you know, if I had really experienced or was cognizant that someone was looking at me as less than or inferior to them, I think that would have, especially with the kind of personality that I have, I think it would have made me feel worse about myself. I don't think that I would have been, you know, I wouldn't have turned militant, or, and that may be too strong of a word, but I don't think that it would have made me bolder. You know, I think it would have actually, especially given the history, you know what I mean, like of, you know, just what we've experienced as black people in this country. Like, I don't think that would have been helpful to me. So I'm actually glad that I didn't, you know what I mean? And so I think now, though, you know, my children, we live in a neighborhood where we are in the minority. You know, my children go to schools where they are the minority. And we've been having these conversations a little more, my husband and I, you know, about our boys, you know, our young boys, they're 9, being educated around, you know, pretty much all predominantly, you know, white people. And they're at that age now where they're starting to realize that they are different. You know, they are black. You know, why is my hair like this and their hair is like that? You know, it's just really different. And so, you know, the oldest of the twins, Jackson, there's a show, I think Ludacris is the writer of the show on Netflix. And it's a cartoon. It's an animated show called Karma's World. Have you guys seen it? Okay. So it's a little girl. And she has like really, really curly hair. Little black girl.
And his daughter, right?
I think so. I think so. Yeah, but so Jackson, he came in, and I guess she raps like on the show. And so he came downstairs the other day. He was like, Mom, look. Now my boys have long dreads. And so they wear bonnets at night, bonnets or scarves or some kind of head covering on their hair. And so he came downstairs and he was like, Ma, look. He was like, Karma wears a bonnet too, you know? And so he was like, Ma, she can rap, listen at this. And so he like started rewinding it. And so he was like, Ma, he was like, black people can do anything. And I was like, yes. I was like, black people can do anything. Yes. But it's like, everything now is, you know, black and white. Yeah. Black and white. Like black people, like a black person did that, and a black, like, because I wanted my kids to name 10 famous black people. They couldn't do it. They couldn't name 10 famous black people. Now, to be fair, I don't know if they can name 10 famous white people either. Right. But they can do that. And I'm like, okay, I need you to know this, though. I need you to understand, like, that there are black people who have achieved extraordinary accomplishments. And February was just not long enough, you know, for us to talk about those things. And so I started telling them, you know, of course, we talked about Ketanji Brown Jackson, like, in her, you know, historic nomination. Yes, you know, we talked about that. And so we were just kind of going over these just different figures, both past and present, you know, black figures, and I could just see the awe and wonder, like they were in total disbelief, you know, that black people had achieved these things. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we got to dig more into this because it starts at their age. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it starts at their age, teaching them and training them. And I'm like, I want them to grow up with an assertiveness and a confidence and a belief in themselves, because as black men, I mean, you know, they say that we are the most disrespected in America, and I get it for, you know, financial reasons, economical reasons, when it comes to like what we're paid and our value and things like that. But in terms of what they have to endure just out on the street, driving down, I feel like they are definitely looked at as more of a threat than I personally am. Even though, again, you know, black women have been
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like we've experienced our fair share of unjust treatment too, and so.
Yes.
But I look at that and so it's like I want them to go out into the world and I want them to just have a real sense of self, you know, and it's like the only way to do that so that they don't end up later having these conversations or having to have the same kind of conversations, I think, is in inculcating these messages in them very, very early on. The whole reason why I was saying all that, though, you'll probably have to edit some of this because I'm talking a lot, but the whole reason why I was saying all of this, though, is because we were talking about, especially in Cleveland, you know, the choice between sending our children to predominantly white schools, which are typically in neighborhoods that have more resources, more programs, more college readiness courses and things like that, versus the black neighborhoods, where they're going to be around people who look like them, so they don't have to worry about that whole, you know, being looked at as inferior or anything like that. But then these schools don't have the money to provide the same kind of education. So as a black parent, it's like you have to choose between the lesser of two evils. And what do you do in that situation?
And I think that's certainly complex for you, all that are parents. And I just actually, and I have to send you that post because recently saw somebody just post where this is the decision that they made to send their child to a predominantly white school, and whatever, there has been a recent experience and it has broken his mom's heart for what her child had to endure because they were in this environment, you know. And so as you know, I can't even imagine that burden because you can't all of the extracurricular activities, even the stuff that I grew up with, they're like null and void. They cut them out because they don't have the money to do it. But I also wanted to again speak to about when you are in these as a black woman showing up in these different spaces and you realize too how they make laws, how they make rules, how they make their code of conduct based on their intimidation of us or their lack of understanding of us. So you can't wear your hair like this because, our hair don't do that, so why should they get away with wearing their hair like this? You know what I'm saying? So now, if your hair is like this, then you're not professional. You can't come to work like this.
And them cutting those kids' hair in school, like those incidences where those like coaches have been cutting like their hair off without the parents, like their permission or them knowing and then finding out after the fact. That's something else. But shout out to the Crown Act, that law that was passed that says that we cannot be discriminated against. Again, it is, progress, obviously.
And we have to keep, the thing what I want to say for us as black women, and I know it's burdensome for us, and a lot of weights are on us for a number of different reasons, but to the best of our ability, we got to keep our foot on the gas.
Yeah.
For our culture, you know what I'm saying, for our homes, for our communities, for our church, for all the way around, for our job, for whatever environment that we have to kind of, show up in. And of course, collectively, we need to do it as a culture with everybody in our culture, because what happens is as soon as we let our foot off the gas, because that's what they anticipate. Yeah. That's what these systems anticipate. Us going to sleep, us not paying any attention.
Or being distracted by something else.
Yeah. Oh, well, we got this win. Not gonna happen. So, because that's what they do. They make one rule, the Crown Act. Yeah. But then they study now making a bunch of other ones to dismantle that.
Yeah.
You're not going to appease me.
Exactly. They just always, and I think that's where my frustration comes when I see that.
Yeah.
Oh well, I'll stop on your own. Go.
You've heard multiple stories about being a black woman in society. Well, overall, just being black in general, experiences, everything like that. So I need you to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Also, if you're a minority in the society that you live in or, have any experiences, please leave it in the comment section below and we'll love to hear about it. That wraps this up. Ladies Night at Wine Talk. See you guys on the next one. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.